Okay, hello. Happy Sunday. I'm a little bit stressed because I have a 4-year-old screaming upstairs who wants to go out, but it's not my responsibility to take him out, so we just have to try to ignore it until they get out of the door. Anyways, so I've been playing around with the project, and I've had some learnings. So maybe I can try to, like, quickly summarizing this is that we've been working on some patterns for reactive state management using a single primitive of reactive. That's been like super successful, just having like one single primitive and relying on patterns to do the rest. But then there is this idea, like, but if you do that, then you build your state management outside of React. And then there's this like pull towards React, like how could you bring that reactive primitive into React so you could build up the state management? Like there wasn't any difference between component state management and your application-wide state management. But the thing is, you can't use use-state or use-reducer to build application-wide state management. It just doesn't scale because of performance issues. And like all the rest of like dependency arrays and just expressing state updates. It's a drag. So how could you like kind of replace use-state with something reactive that works just as fine locally in a component as application-wide? And that's what this project is like exploring. And I actually have like the other refactor of like doing the state management outside of React. And now we're trying to like do it inside of React using this use-reactive primitive. And I really like the idea of like, okay, just don't forget about React, but just forget about use-state and use use-reactive instead. And then it doesn't matter where you use that primitive or that hook. Use it locally in a component, use it locally in component and share state with nested components. Use it in context, use it in a hook. Like it doesn't matter how you use it. It will just be performant out of the box. And you don't have to use dependency arrays. You can also use just normal JavaScript, like mutation API, to change that state. That's really appealing to me, and it's been working actually quite nicely. Like I'm finding myself like creating. Where did I create? I didn't. Yeah, so I have like. Where's the main file? So in the main file, I have something I call the env provider, and this is just how I deal with environment-specific APIs. In this case, Firebase and the DOM. So I kind of expose an interface for the environment instead, and that just cleans up the code. But you can use a context for that, right? So now anything in the app has access to the environment, which is kind of what I don't like as well. Because if you're outside of React doing your state management, you can pass the environment into your state management and your components has no access to any environment specifics. Like that's up to the state management to use that. But that's not like that's more of a principle than really like that's how you should do it. So, and then I have another, so in the session, when you're authenticated, I pass the user and family into the family scrum context. And then inside of family scrum, I have a bunch of hooks that are composed together inside this use family scrum thing. And this actually works. This works really well. The only thing I think is problematic, or is like the thing that, so I had like several like hitting the walls with this. The first one was how you do composition. So in this case, it's fine to do this, right? But if I were to do this, now it wouldn't work because now I'm using hooks inside basically a use state callback. So you can't Like you have to be a bit more careful. And then you could argue, well, use groceries and use do's and use dinners and use weeks should be their own hooks that should be consumed directly by components. But if I do that, it means that I have to create context for each of them, which is the whole point, that you shouldn't necessarily, you don't have to do that anymore. Or you could just drop. So here, for example, with use groceries, I could rather just make it a function that kind of returns the groceries object. It doesn't even make it reactive. Oh, why is this? Yeah, this should be use-reactive. Sorry. Oh, what happened here? Oh, sorry. I haven't actually set up this. I think use-reactive-react. No, sorry, I haven't set it up. Well, whatever. But the point is, if I want to internally in this hook make changes to groceries, because I'm returning everything as read-only, so the consumers are forced to use the methods I exposed, like the specific interactions with the state. So if I want anything inside here to reactively interact with the groceries, it needs to use the hook. So it's like, it's like it's not super intuitive, I think. Well, to some degree it is, but I guess it's the same in React. Like that's the thing. Like I'm doing these refactors and moving between these paradigms. It gets a bit blurry. So I'm not sure if you would even think about this in React. And maybe you wouldn't even like, yeah, and that's also the thing. It's like the reason I put the groceries here instead of like returning or like creating like just exposing like an object here is because I don't want that object to change every time family scrum provider reconciles. So I could like move these things into like their separate things here, and then I could expose everything on an object. But that's the problem with React, is that every time family scrum provider reconciles, which it practically doesn't do, but it just bugs the hell out of me, it will produce a new value, new object every time for here, which means that every consumer of this context will reconcile. So I think what's unnatural about this is that you wouldn't do this with use state, right? You wouldn't create an object with use state and then you would use state again, right? That's just super silly. So yeah, I think this is, yeah, this is just different. That's the point. Well, there is an interesting aspect of this though. Because we're using reactivity, these provider components, they will never reconcile. Because they are memo components, and these things will never change. So that's a good point. Like you can safely do something like, so we could make these like groceries equals columns to do's equals to do's equals weeks, awake, use awake. Yeah, and like use awake is, yeah. Okay, let's just keep it there. Let's see. So what could be done here is like, yeah, so this could rather be, I guess I could call it like session or something. Yeah, whatever. So the point is, instead of doing this, I could just expose, because the user and family can't change. So I could put user, family, groceries, dinners, to-dos, weeks, awake. So I could do this instead. And that does make more sense for React. And maybe this is how I would actually have done it if I was like only implementing it in this React paradigm. Yeah, that is very interesting. Okay, so let's so this is what I mean. I'm constantly hitting a wall, but then I'm like reflecting and I'm thinking like, would I actually do that if I implemented it from scratch? Because now we're refactoring, so I probably wouldn't. But this is interesting. Like typically this is a bad sign, this object here. But because we're in a reactive paradigm, these providers, they will never reconcile. Because you wouldn't never pass them something that would change. It's their internals that change. So yeah, okay. So we're gonna leave it at that. And then yeah, whatever. Yeah, so this still exposes the same thing. And each of these, like use groceries, has just uses the environment, uses this family persistence API based on family ID. And then we have like the groceries API where we have groceries and how to interact with those groceries. As a reactive effect, when it runs, we subscribe to all groceries and keep that up to date. And then we return a read-only version of groceries. So when something accesses groceries from the outside, they're forced to use the functions to make any changes. And this is a super, super nice pattern. The only thing is, yeah, so this is the next thing that kind of hit me, is that you can't do nested state. You can't build like state trees out of this. So as an example of that, in the previous implementation, I would have groceries like this, but I wouldn't have shop grocery here. I would rather map over the groceries and I would create like a reactive entity for each grocery. That was the same concept. Like it was just a function that took the data of the grocery and then returned a reactive version of that data, read only, with a shop method. So that was the only way you could interact with that grocery, was by buying it. But you can't do that here, because we can't, as we just talked about, you can't nest hooks, at least not state hooks. Like you can't nest hooks. They have to run whenever it reconciles. So I have to move all functionality here, like shop grocery, for example, and then you pass in the ID of the grocery you want to buy. And this is something we're used to in React, right? So this is not a huge problem. But it's interesting how, like, if we look at the previous implementation here in state, you just have all entities just flat right here. You can learn everything about the app here. So as I mentioned, grocery, it's just a function that takes the data and family persistence, and it returns that data with the shop method as a read-only thing. But now using React, I don't have to pass like family persistence around, for example. I can just use the environment anywhere. It has dependency injection, while this concept doesn't have dependency injection, which is interesting. Yeah, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so that's also like, yeah, that was a little bit of a different mindset, but that's also fine, because that's what we're used to in React. We don't use state and build like a state tree out of it with functionality and subscriptions and stuff. So that is definitely fine. But then it's the last thing, and this is where I'm stuck. And this is more of a technical thing than anything else. So it's in the current week calendar. And that's, yeah, so this is also something I like. Actually, so there's certain things I prefer here compared to the, like doing the external thing. So the thing I like here in React is that, okay, I can just use the environment using, like you have dependency injection. That's nice. It cleans up like passing stuff around. And what was the other thing? Yeah, and the other thing is that you use the same primitives, right? If it's a component, it's a hook, it's a context, you use the same reactive primitives. So if you want to memo something in a context, you just use reactive memo. But if you want to memo something specifically for a component, you can do the same. And then it's not a question of like, is this state management, application-wide state management unrelated to UI, or is it specific to UI, right? That's a huge burden. Like talking about dependency arrays and value comparison and stuff as a burden, having to think about what do I consider UI specific state and what do I consider, like what should be in React and what should not be in React. That burden is huge. It's such a pain. But here you don't have to think about that. Here you can just use the reactive memo wherever it makes sense. And if you see that, oh, there's actually more components that needs this, then you just move that memo to a context, right? So it's very, very easy to move things around. It's really how you want to React to work in the first place. Like you start with a component, you implement all your state there, and then, okay, you need to share that state. Let's pass it to like a child component. That's fine. But now you start having to think about performance, like how does the reference changes happen? Do I need memo on this component that I nested? And then even worse, like there's a bunch of components that needs this state. Let's create a context. And then every time you create a context for state management, you're pretty much fucked. But here we can see the problem. So use reactive memo will in and of itself keep itself up to date based on whatever it accesses. So in this case, we are mapping over the current week dinners, and we're just mapping so that the dinners array here is just, it's like 7 items in an array. It's either null or a dinner ID. So if we can find a dinner that matches, we're gonna, yeah, basically map, if there's an ID there, map to the actual dinner. That's the whole thing. And that's fine, right? And then we have week events. And week events is basically just creating the same kind of like 7 days array. So for like weekday lookup. And then it just maps, goes over the to-dos and finds to-dos that's part of this week. And then gets the day index of that to-do and shoves it into the respective day of the week. And then we return that. Great. But what's gonna happen? Did I actually insert that? Yeah, whatever. Let me just explain. So this is fine. Like these are isolated memos, right? The problem, which is a promise of reactive state management, is that if you have computed state, you do not only react to, like you do not only observe state, you can also observe computed state. So in this context, that would mean I would have one use reactive memo, for example, week dinners, and then I could use week dinners inside another use reactive memo. But I can't do that. I just can't, because this is just a value that we return. And there's no reactivity. Like it's technically impossible. Like if this is a number and you use that number inside here, like there's no way to observe that. even if I like made the thing return from this reactive, you wouldn't be able to observe that number. And this is a problem. And okay, and then the question is like, why other people are doing this? Like Preact, Solid, they have like computed hooks, right? And they handle this observation. They do, but they don't just return the value. So weak dinners will be weak dinners dot value, and dot value is something you can observe. Or with Solid, you call it. This is something you can observe. But you can't observe like week dinner count, for example. It's technically impossible. And then it's like, oh, but then what if you just use a dependency array, right? But then we kind of lost the whole thing. So this I think is the biggest problem, because if you just use memo, it's fine to use memo and use that value for another use memo, right? Because of the dependency array. So it's funny to me that we're kind of, this is where it breaks down. But what's also interesting is that you could make this project not, so I made a statement that you shouldn't have reactive effects, right? Reactive effects is a bad thing because it creates an indirection in your code. So you could get by like using traditional well, that it wouldn't work. Yeah, no, it wouldn't work. You can't combine these things. I was thinking about just using use-reactive, but then you can't memo. And that kind of sucks. Because, but again, it's like I'm not sure about what my goal is. I just find it very interesting to like just reflect and explore these concepts. And you could very easily argue that my motivation here is to kind of just say, I really want to make the point that React made a bad decision having, just like this AI explains so well. Where did it say it? Yeah. So React's design has long no, this is not a good one. Is it here? No, or was it this one? It was so beautifully put. Yeah, React's design has long championed immutable state updates and shallow comparison, a strategy that powers its highly optimized reconciliation process. Yet, what if this very strategy, perfect for internal performance, can sometimes create friction when managing component state in day-to-day development? This just encapsulates perfectly the motivation of like doing the current exploration. Like, what if you didn't have use state? What if you had like use reactive instead? And you let the reconciler still be based on immutability and like shallow comparison. But you would use reactivity at the component layer. Because that's where the developer operates, right? That's where the developer experience is. It's in the component abstraction. It's not in the reconciler. Yeah, so that's kind of the motivation here, but it needs to feel intuitive. That's the whole point. If we're ever going to do anything about this, it needs to feel intuitive. And I think we've gotten there very, very far. But here it just, there's a complete stop. You can't make memo intuitive. At least not putting memos in memos. Yeah. Like, this is why I sat down with the stream, was to kind of just talk through that. I don't have any ideas on how to fix it. Maybe we can, yeah, let's just ask maybe ChatGPT has an idea. So I have this, I think I asked it, but let's ask it again. So I have this issue trying to implement a reactive hook of use reactive. But I meet a problem with use reactive memo. For example, when so this hook works in and of itself, but if I were to use week dinners here in a different use reactive memo, that memo would not update when week dinners change, because that returned value is not reactive in and of itself. I could make objects, arrays, etc. reactive, but you can memo to a number, and that number is technically impossible to make reactive. You have any ideas on how I could solve this? It would be sad to, even though like it's definitely an edge case, right? How often do you put a memoed value inside another memo, right? It's not common. It was sad to have to explain this limitation, which I guess is quite the edge case. But still, any way to handle this, you think? Morning, Adam. How are you feeling? This is a classic pitfall with reactivity systems that rely on proxies. Primitive values like numbers or even plain arrays and objects aren't automatically reactive unless you wrap or proxy them. In your example, the value returned from use-reactive memo isn't reactive by itself. So when you later depend on it, changes in the underlying data don't trigger updates. Why it happens? Primitive limitation. Reactive systems can track changes on objects and arrays by intercepting property access, but not immutable primitives. Exactly. When you compute a derived value, like your week dinners array, it's created as a plain value, even if its dependencies are reactive. The return value isn't wrapped to be reactive. Potential solutions: wrap in reactive container. If you know you might return a primitive or a non-proxy object, wrap it in an object or a ref-like container. So that's one way to do it, but that doesn't. Instead of relying on the memo's return value to be reactive, you can include the original reactive object as dependencies in subsequent memos. Yeah, but then I would have to. Yeah, but that wouldn't like really work. Because then if you return a reactive. Oh, you might do. Yeah, exactly. So you would kind of have to. Okay, so I guess that's a fair suggestion, right? So use reactive memo doesn't actually return. It actually returns an object with value, right? Okay, that's interesting. So React already does this. So you could, instead of value, you can do .current. That is interesting. That would actually solve it. And the reason it does that is just because of reactivity. So we would just return reactive around that object, and then current is, yeah. And then you use current. So that would be a change to the API, but that's a fair change, I think. because you would still use refs and everything. So it doesn't like change your mental model of React. It just makes that hook work like use-ref, or like you access it like use-ref. That's a very good point. Like I love just chatting with these AIs, trying to get ideas. Okay, so we're gonna. Okay, so then week dinners would like be week dinners memo, for example, and then you would do week dinners memo current. That's it. And like I'm just kind of pushing through this because I want to see what the end result is. And then I want to like, I have this branch now. We have a lot of stuff in here now. So it's a lot of things to evaluate on. So I want to give the like the Bonsify branch, which is like the pure reactive implementation outside of React. And then you'll have this use-reactive-react, which is like the same implementation, only fusing that reactive primitive with hooks. And from my experience, it's like there's good parts, like there's no silver bullet, right? But as a React, like I'm so deep into this stuff that I am not able to evaluate what's best for the common React developer. But okay, so we're gonna, okay, I'm a bit excited again now. Use reactive-react. Did I make any changes to it? No. I wonder why it's not picking up the... Oh, it's not built here. Okay. So what we're gonna do... Oh, okay, now I know. Oh, what happened there? So we're gonna build this, and then we are going to change use reactive memo. We're actually gonna do... So result there is actually going to be a reactive current. So this is going to return. Does it understand this? Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's it. And then let's unlink it. Ah, there's already a package. Okay, so I guess it was just a lack of... Oh my god, he's still crying? What's happening? Just 2 seconds. I have to figure out what's happening. I'll be back. All right. Let's see. So the thing I'm trying to get through here now is this fucking computed of fucking calendar. It's such a... Let's see. Now we can get use reactive. Nice. So we're gonna make this run now. Let's see. yes, let me just close this down because it's so like the way like it's the persistence, like it's a really badly like when I architected like the persistence or the database for this, I did not really consider that hard what I was going to use. Well, I guess I didn't quite know what I was going to use the data for. So week dinners memo makes a lot of sense. Week events memo makes a lot of sense. We're just running through all the to-dos, figuring out if they are in this week, and if they are, we're getting the weekday index, and then we're shoving that to-do on that day. Great. And then we have week to-dos, and week to-dos memo. Yeah, just pushes this other thing. And what's bothering me here is that week events memo are to-do DTOs. Yeah, and this is also a thing that I really like better about the other one, is that now we're kind of back to using DTOs. Because I'm not able to, like in the other example, I'm able to wrap all single data entities in their own like state encapsulation and giving them functionality. But I can't do this in this version. So we're stuck with DTOs, and then I have like the outer state management that actually has the methods. And I don't think that's confusing, especially if you're coming from React. That's exactly how you do everything in React. But it makes it harder to do, like it just exposes some lower level things. Like as a UI, you don't care about the actual DTO, the data transfer object from the server. You don't care about it. What you care about is like that entity and what you can do with it. That's what you care about from a UI perspective. So even here, like the to-do DTO actually guarantees a date. So what I want to do here, just to kind of, so this is a little bit confusing. So this is an array of, well, it's actually specifically 7 items, but I don't want to type that. So I'm going to omit to do DTO date. It's going to look a bit horrible, but it's just going to, and then we're just going to shove in that timestamp. And then, so we're going to do, why don't you fit now? Oh, is this still, oh, so that's still undefined? Oh, I thought that would actually fix it, but it doesn't. The point is, when I actually iterate the week events memo, it's still going to show the date as undefined, even though that's the whole reason the to-do is there, is because the date is defined. So that just bothers me. But I find it interesting that it doesn't able to infer that from here. Like there is a date there. So when I push that to do, yeah, I guess you could argue like, yeah, I'm not sure why that's it. Why it does that. That kind of bothers me. But okay, let's just get it rolling. Because that's also a thing I could easily do in the other solution. Is like, there's different variations of this data, right? So I had like a way to kind of go between well, is that true? Yeah, like for example, with the checklist, from the data persistence perspective, you might not even have a checklist field. But then since I made like, I mapped to do DTO to a to-do with specific functionality for a to-do, I would also force a checklist to be there, I believe. Did I do that? Or at least I could do that, right? So you always had like a checklist, and then you could rather have like a flag that just tells you if you've added some checklist items or not. Yeah, maybe a bad example. I can't remember how I did that. But anyways, so this array is to do DTO, and then it has this assignment. And assignments by weekday. Oh, that's an any. And these assignments is a family user DTO, which is family user DTO. To do, and then assignments. Ah, wait, assignments? Where is assignments coming from? Oh yeah, by weekday. And why is this? Yeah. So this would be array of family user DTO. Why is this wrong? Oh, did I put it the wrong way? Family user. Oh, sorry. There you go. But again, like this complexity has nothing to do with the approach we're doing now. I had the same challenge like building this for the other one. It's just the way the data is persisted and how it needs to be mapped back to something a UI can use. It's horrible. But now if I wanted to, so the point now is that what I want to make sure of is that we're not pushing. So the problem with this thing is that a to-do might have a date. And if it has a date, it should show up in the calendar. But you might also have assignments on that date. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the way I would really do this is that I would actually do the same here. That they can have assignments, both of them. But then for every to do, this is the thing, like I'm iterating, like even though it's not that many entries, I'm just doing so much iteration. So I'm going through all the to-dos here, but then for each to-do, I have to go through the actual current week to-dos to figure out if any of them has assignments. And then here I would iterate, I would do the opposite. I would iterate all the to-dos, and then I would have to go through all the to-dos for each week to do, and then figure out does it have a date or not? Because if it has a date, then I shouldn't do it, because then it's been handled here. Like, god damn it, this calendar is such like it's amazing, like the user experience of it, but it's incredibly complicated under the hood. There has to be a better way to do this. I'm not sure if I should even have 2 memos for this, but it was good. Like this actually led to like that limitation. Oh my god. What idiot. What idiot designed this thing. Okay, so let's think about how we can do this differently. Like I said, the problem is that we need to iterate all the to-dos. So the thing is that we have more to-dos than we have week to-dos, right? So that means we should really iterate all the to-dos. And And then for every to do, we're gonna check if it is an actual, you know, maybe that doesn't, yeah, wait, that doesn't even matter actually. Yeah, the only thing we really want to do here is that we want to have this array of the to-do and the assignments. That's what we want. So we're gonna like make it easy to just go through all these like to-dos that's relevant. And then we just want an easy way to like pick up on any assignment. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. And then, so we have weekdays here, and now we have this stuff. And what we need to do is, so the point is when we iterate all the to-dos, there's two ways that to-do is gonna end up in this array. It's either if it has a date and that date is on within this week, or if we have an actual week to do on it. So it's much easier. Well, I guess we need both regardless. So we're going to find any matching week to do on it. So that would be family scrum. Okay, I'm in control now. Weeks, current to-dos, find week to do dot id equals to do dot id. Look at that. So if we have let's see. And then we want to grab the assignments from the week to do, if there are any. And that could just be a function. Yeah. Assignments, get week to do assignments. So we're going to make this like much simpler. Like we're going to actually apply the pattern on this stuff. Like now it's currently like looks like shit. So what we can do here is derive dinners from, oh, my partner is calling. 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds, I have to go up. Yeah, I have to quit. But let's just get this thing in. Let's see, function derive dinners from week. Or derive week dinners, is that what I called it? Derive week dinners. And then what we can do here, we can actually move all this stuff. And this will be derive week to-dos. So that would be function derive week to-dos. And then for each, we can do get week to do assignments. week to do DTO. And here we can run this crazy logic. Yeah, assignments by weekday. Do we have... No, we don't need by weekday. We actually need... Yeah. Let's see. Because we're getting... Bare vent litt, Oskar. Du må vente litt nå. Du må vente litt. Jeg trodde du og mamma skulle være lenger ute her, skjønner du. Men du vil ikke det, du. Men pappa må på det lageret, og så må vi kaste... Men du kan nok tørke på meg. Hæ? Ja, du kan game litt mens jeg gjør meg ferdig her, da. Men du må bli med på tur etterpå, ok? Du, jeg tror du synes det er kjempespennende. Vi skal ned på Anne og Esker ned på et lager, kjøre ned. Og så skal vi tilbake her og så hente noen ting vi skal kaste, og så skal vi kjøre den hvert sted. Ja, du må være med på det etterpå, ok? I'm... breathe. Oh my god. Anyways, we're passing in... Yes, we need to pass in weekday index here as well. Like there's a specific weekday index that we want this for. That would be a week to do, weekday index number. And now we're not going to assign by weekday. We're just going to go through... So we're still going to have assignments. But that's not going to be this array. It's just going to be a plain old array. Vent litt, Oskar. Assignments. And then we're going to return those assignments. And then here we're just going to push. Yeah, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this. So we're just going to see if the user has an assignment on that weekday index. And if it does, we're going to push the assignment into the array. And then we're all good. Husker du hva du trykker på, Oskar? Ja, rød. Ja, helt øverst. Øverst. Opp. Der, ja. Der. Bra jobba. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Where were we? Why isn't this working? And get we does it? Oh, sorry. Week to do. Yeah, sorry. So this would only be if week to do we have assignments or we don't have assignments. So we need to change this a bit. So if, okay, so if it has a date and it is within this week, how are we going to express this? Like, so if we have a week to do, then we're going to just push it. But then what weekday index would that be? Currently, this is just, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, so I can't figure out the weekday index based on the week to do. I have to look at the assignments, and like each person in the family has their own like 7-item array of have I committed to this to do or not. So this to do could fit like in different, oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, so we need week to do assignments. So we're gonna, for fuck's sake. So this would be get week to do assignments. So if we have a week to do, we're gonna get week to do assignments. And if not, this would be like, I guess null, 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 null. No. Come on. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't have any assignments. Or I guess it should be empty arrays. And this is like, I just feel so bad for this. Like it's creating all these arrays, all these iterations. It just feels exceptionally inefficient. Ah, god damn it. Yeah. Damn it. So get week to do assignments. We need them regardless, and it's not based on weekday index. Rather, we have to like, oh my god. So this would be array 7 fill with arrays. And then for each day, how many assignments do we have? This feels so wrong. Like, is it better at the level where I present these assignments? Like, I'm just figuring out which week to do is relevant for every. Like, I think I'm trying too hard to make the data work for the UI. Which made a lot of sense. Like in the other one where I had external management, and I decided that no, I'm actually going to give it. I'm going to give the UI state that makes sense. But then I had to evaluate constantly, like, how should that state look like? So it's a generic enough for like any UI, but specific enough for the specific UI. That was like just really, really rough, but implementing it was like pretty straightforward. But now I'm more like, do I really need to create these like mappings? Like, shouldn't it be enough to just get the relevant to-dos, and then I just run through them. Well, first I sort them, because I just wonder if they have, let's see, derive week to-dos. So I'm just going to do this thing again. And that's cool. And we're not going to do all of this stuff. So if it has, we're not going to do assignments. So if it has a date, we're going to push it. Else if week to do. Yeah, the problem now is like, which day index am I going to push this? Because that's based on its assignments. So I have to look at the assignments regardless. And I have to look at it for each user. Oh, I just don't like this. And then if they happen to be on the same, like if two people are assigned on the same day, I have to iterate again, like the existing like weekday to see if the to-do has already been added, right? Well, I guess I can just continue. Yeah, I can like return early, like if anyone, yeah, and that's also weird, right? If I'm gonna iterate all the users, potential assignments, oh my God, this is driving me crazy. This is driving me crazy. Because if I have to run through them anyways, why like to check? Why not just add them? I'm not in the mood for this. I'm so not in the mood for this. Okay. So we need to get assignment for each day for that to do. And to get that, we have to go through each user. And for each user, we need to go through its assignments. And these are like already 7-day arrays. And then we can do this check if assignment. We can do assignments, and we now have, yeah, we don't have the index, so we have to do let weekday index 0. User assignments at length. So if user assignments weekday index, and use that weekday index to push that family member, and then we return the assignments. So if okay, so now we have the assignments, which means that we need to iterate through and this is so weird as well. It's like this doesn't make sense. This whole data structure just doesn't make sense because I've been adding and adding to this. So like you have it to do on a specific date, but I think you can still assign yourself to like any day of the week. So there's like two completely different things here. If I have a week to do, that's the one I'm gonna follow. So that's like that takes priority, and then I just need to know. Yeah, and if I don't have a week to do, I don't have any assignments either. But I still want to show the to do if the day or if it is an event. So if we have week to do, okay, we're getting the assignments, we get them reliably now. And then for each yeah, and now we need to push the to do. Yes. Now we need to push the to do with the related assignments, given that it has assignments. So that means we need to go through week to do assignments for each assignments and index. And then we see if assignments.length, we're going to push this into weekdays. Well, we're going to weekdays index push to do and assignments, and it's happy. And then we're going to return. So we don't want to do, so this is what we want to do for each to do that actually has assignments. But then we might also have just a date. And then we have that, and then we're done. Okay, this is how it's gonna look. That was rough. That was super rough. Okay, so we have week dinners memo. And then we have weekdays. Yeah, so we have weekdays is array 7 fill with nothing. Because we just want to iterate the weekdays. And then we can look at, do we have a week dinner? Wait, week dinner, is this? Yeah, sorry. So this would be week dinners memo current index. So we might have a week dinner, which is a dinner DTO or null. That's correct. And then week events would be week to do's memo current find. Well, not find, filter. Where I guess, yeah, we can do to do an assignment. So if we have to do date, what the hell is happening here? What's happening? Hello. Oh, is it? I don't have the comma there, or no? What's happening? Wait. Why? I can't filter, or? Oh. Oh, sorry. Of course. Sorry. Index. Excuse me. To do to do assignments. So if the to do has a date and it has assignments, then no assignments. Then we call it a week event. And then basically week to-dos are week to-dos, memo, current, index, filter on, well, I guess the opposite. Well, I guess we just need assignments. So week events are events with no assignments, like it has a date, but no assignments. And then week to-dos is everything that has assignments. Cool. And now we have week dinner. Oh, one thing we forgot, I think. This should be reactive read only. That's one thing we forgot. Okay, we have week dinner. And then we have week events. And then this would be to-do.id. And then we have week to do assignments. But now these are, let's see, week to-dos map. We have the to-do here. We have the assignments. And now the assignment is the actual family member. Okay. Look at that. Oh my God, that was rough. So this would be dinner DTO. Yeah, we're gonna fix all of this. So how did I handle this? Okay, so we're gonna actually do a proper review of this. Like, this is not giving much of a perspective on how this actually works. So we're gonna make it better. But for now, we're just gonna make it work first. So dinner has possible image ref. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say dinner.imageref, or wait, no, we're always gonna pass a dinner here. But this dinner is gonna be dinner DTO. So we're passing a dinner, and then if that dinner has an image ref, so this was a thing I could do previously. In the external one, I was able to say, wait, okay, I have dinner DTO, but I'm gonna create a dinner, and the dinner actually has an image URL instead of an image ref. And that image URL would be a getter to go and grab the promise of the actual URL. While here I have to have the image ref because I can't wrap the dinner DTO into its own thing. So I have the image ref here, and then I have to pass the image ref. So let's call it image ref instead. And then I have to do family scrum, I believe, use family scrum dinners get image URL, and then image ref. Oh, sorry. This is just a string. So now I have to do this instead. So I have to like more manually in the UI map things. So I think, and I like, again, React developers are used to this. Like we work with the normalized state because of immutability and reference equality and like all of this stuff. So we are used to doing this like cross-check lookups and like deriving things from different sources into one thing that's like kind of brought together for the UI you're implementing. But a side effect of that is that the UI has more of a relationship to the actual data. But what's interesting about this though is that I can, for example, with the current week calendar, I can just as easily now move these week dinners and week to-dos into my context. That's perfectly safe. So we're going to do that now just to kind of see that in action. So where is use family scrum? So now I can just shove these two in here. Current week calendar. And then we're going to take these two and we're going to put them into family scrum instead. And this is what I like now I'm kind of hiding the data references again, right? Family users, what else? This would be weeks, dinners. I have dinners right here. To do DTO. Again, I have the to-dos here. I have the weeks there. Everything's fine. And this is something I couldn't do before, right? Just being able to do this, I think that's very powerful. It's very appealing that, okay, I just built this for this specific UI, but you know, I just want to bring that in and just share it with any component. And what I can also do now is that I can say get week dinners, and then I can return week dinners memo dot value. Oh, sorry, current. And the same for get week to-dos memo. Week to-dos memo current. So I can do things like this, which I find, as I said, appealing. What was it? Week dinners? I can't remember the... What was the thing? Oh, I guess this is like week dinners would actually be dinner DTO. Let's just make it an array. I don't care. And... Oh. That was week dinners. And then we have week to-dos. And that was a little bit different. It was to do DTO. And assignments, which was family member array. Oh, Yeah, family member DTO. Oh, family user DTO. Okay. Whatever. Yeah, and I guess I can just do this. Like that. Why are you complaining? Oh, sorry. Dinner DTO or null. There we go. Yes, I can do things like this, which is pretty nice. And it has absolutely no impact on performance. Because whatever it's consuming, week dinners memo, it will reconcile whenever it changes. So that is very interesting. So I'm trying to reflect on like, what are we giving up and what are we gaining by doing this? So like compared to, well, I guess there's 3 things to evaluate here. Like, yeah, maybe we should draw this. Because there's like a jump. So what if you're used to using use state, but you're feeling all this friction, right? And it definitely is a smaller jump to use these hooks instead, because they work like the hooks you know. As opposed to, oh, no, you have to go outside of React and you have to do all these. This is how you build up state trees, and this is how you dispose of things, and this is how you do this and that. No, you can just use these, like use reactive memo and use reactive just straight out of the box. But then you have like the other way. Like, what if you're used to, like you, Adam, working with state management outside of React, and then you kind of see these primitives? And would you, I think that's a bigger leap, because you're used to like nesting things, and you can't really do that here. And it's also just the fact that, like, what if you're building a native app and a web app? If you do this approach, you have to make you have to build your components generically. Like you can't like create one app that's like, well, so what you can do is that you can move all your hooks, right? All your providers and your hooks, you can move those outside, and you can like re-implement the actual UI. So I guess it's kind of the same. It's just cleaner with like external state management, because you inject that at the root level of the app, as opposed to here you kind of intertwine it more, which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So what were we doing? Yeah, so now we can actually use family scrum, week dinners, and family scrum, week to-dos, and then family scrum, week to-dos. Cool. I think this is pretty nice. And the thing, like, if I ever want to like, yeah, but I do wonder, Adam, like you admitted that you've always used MobX. So I can totally understand from the perspective of having the freedom of using MobX outside of React, and then just like consuming that store or that state management in components. Never like, yeah, like who needs the most help? I think that's what I'm getting to. And I don't think you need a lot of help, like or you want things to change, like help, like you don't want things to change. You're like really happy about the solution of doing like the external state management, use React as just deriving your state management. And like, yeah, we did the project of like making the components of servers automatically. That just cleans up a few things. That's like a small improvement, but the fundamental idea like fits the bill. But then you have all these developers who are like struggling. Yeah, like you don't need to use context or anything, right? And I totally subscribe to that idea, and I really loved working on the other iteration of this, like the Bonsify iteration. It makes a shit ton of sense to me personally. But there are already solutions that does this. It's just another opinion on how to do that. But then you have all these developers that are just using like React and like struggling with React. And they know React really well. And they're like, have a big buy-in to the paradigm of React. And then they kind of, I don't know, like it seems like a smaller step to make things work. So you don't have to go and find like a global state management tool and change your paradigm. Like you can take a smaller step and just install these hooks. And then you do exactly what you're used to doing. It's just way more performant and simpler to do and less overhead and less boilerplate and all of that stuff. Yeah, so I guess it's a more progressive step to do this. Yeah. Yeah. 2 seconds. He needs to change his car. Skal du bytte bil? Skal du ha den? Ja. Så bytte bil. Ok. Ja. Ja. Så husker du nå, når du er ferdig å bytte, så trykker du på den røde 2 ganger. Yeah, exactly. You don't use hooks, right? You just think of React as like, okay, I have this state, just map it to UI. Like it's such a beautiful idea. Do they have a buy-in or do they just not know any different? Like we are thinkers and we say, why are we doing this? But you're most people want all the guy. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I often like I'm often very surprised, like especially when I'm at like conferences or at least at any scenario where I meet people and they are like thinkers, as you say, like they not thinkers as in smarter, but thinkers as in like just reflecting on like why are we doing this and what does it all mean all of this. And I really enjoy that because it's worth spending time on, I think. Er han klarer å trykke selv da? Får du det til? Kan jeg se mens du trykker? Skal du ha den bilen? først på den røde? Nei, du må lære deg det. Ja. Hvis du skal spille, så må du lære deg det. Ja, og så rød. Bra. Og så helt opp på toppen. Bra. Du får det til å stå bra, Oskar. I'm trying to teach him to go from... Nei, nå må du spille litt. Trying to teach... Oh my god. That's such a love-hate relationship to teaching him to play Rocket League. He wants to change the song when he scores a goal. Like, he's changing stuff all the time. It's very annoying. Men du, nå begynner du å spille kamp. Er det så viktig da? Men skal du hoppe ut da? Ja, nå begynte du kampen. Nå kan det hende at ikke du får spilt igjen også, hvis du hopper ut nå. Anyways, so yeah, like conclusion. So yeah, I think developers generally wants guidance, and it's like you have to meet them where they are, right? And to some developers, it just makes a lot of sense to use global state management. It certainly did for me. And it was such a relief. It's just when I read about it or learned about it in the beginning, it just clicked instantly for me. But I've done a couple of like with Cerebral and Overmind, and for a lot of developers, it just doesn't make sense. And maybe that's because they don't even have any issues. Maybe they're just fine with React and React Query, for example. But at the same time, that code has a lot of state. Like, it has state, it has these effects and everything. And that's expressed in like a very like error-prone, confusing, complete brain meltdown way. Yeah, so I don't think, like, I'm not, but that's the whole point. Right? The whole point is to think. It's to reflect, and it's much easier to think and reflect if you have something concrete in front of you. And that's what this is. It's like, if this becomes a thing, it's not because I think it's better than doing global state management. It's just a perspective. It's a way to think about it. And maybe it will help someone, and maybe it doesn't help anyone, but at least it's something concrete that people can discuss and reflect on. That's the whole point. Yeah. Image ref. Cool. What else do we have? Because now we have the dinners and everything. I wonder if we can actually start trying to... Didn't I export? Use family scrum. Oh, sorry, family scrum provider. Oskar, hvis du hopper ut av kampen nå, så stenger spillet deg ute, vet du. Husker du det? Ja, vi kan bytte etterpå. Okay, I'm not gonna pass anything here. Boop. Get away. Oh, didn't I fix this? So what's interesting here now is that I'm actually not passing any of these things now, because now I'm just... Oh, you know what? I'm not going to put it in the session. Oh, sorry. I did wrong. Damn it. So I'm going to pass this into family scrum. And then I'm going to put... Oh, session context? That's weird. So I am going to do this, but we're going to put... Here we're going to put the family scrum provider. I think it fits better here. So this would be user family, user family. And then interesting thing is that I'm actually not passing down the specifics here, which does mean like this is also a bad thing, right? Now we're decoupling a lot of our state. Like previously we had like this hard contract at every level of the component tree. What's guaranteed to be available to you? But now we don't have that. We're using a context. But at the same time, we're not using a context in a way that makes it confusing, because I don't have a context for a session, for example. So I have this like session running, and then when we have an authenticated session, I'm doing family scrum, and then in family scrum, it's guaranteed that everyone has. Oh, of course, I have two files now. That's what happened. Wait, oh my God, family scrum index. Yeah, so let's see if we can get this thing running. So first let's look at groceries. So you're not taking any props anymore. We're gonna do family scrum, use family scrum. And then family scrum awake. Yeah, I haven't really finished that, have I? Awake, didn't I add like an awake thing here? Use awake, yeah. So that's also an interesting thing here is like with this paradigm, you only have the hooks, right? So it doesn't make any sense to use reactivity in your environment interface, which I could do before because I just had the reactive primitive and I could use it wherever I wanted. Which is, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. But it has a healthy separation, I think. So all reactivity is in the actual React app, while these other environment-specific things are just plain JavaScript. Groceries. So family scrum. Okay, maybe we can have const groceries. Groceries. Filter. Oh, I changed it. Yeah, and now I can't do. Now I have to do groceries. Shop grocery. Let's see if we can get the thing running. Like, can I actually run the thing now? Or do I get a bunch of errors? I'm curious if it even runs. 2 seconds. Yeah. Lite sang, sa du? Ja. Sorry at jeg er så grinete og skal klage, altså. Skjønner du hvis det er stas? Ja, det er råkult. Vil du spille en gang til? Let's see, what the hell is this stuff? Okay, I guess I still have some references somewhere to Bonsify. Where is this coming from? Oops. Yeah. But what is actually using Bonsify now? Oh, it's probably still in the... Why can't I see where the stack trace? Okay, I'm just gonna do a search for Bonsify. Yeah. Use dinners? Wait. Oh. Oh, I didn't actually. Okay, interesting. Oh, I didn't. I forgot to. The code is so similar that like. Camera. Oh, I'm using it on the camera. Okay, I think we need to make some changes here. Yeah, but we don't have a checklist item anymore. We don't have dinner anymore. I'm just gonna remove the import dinners we certainly have. Oh, but this is the old stuff. Like, oh, I have to remove everything. Okay, let's see. I have to do another approach here. We're gonna just remove this whole thing. I think we have everything we need. What the hell? Wait, what's happening? Why is... Oh, did I... Oh. user DTO, family DTO, family Scrum provider. What the hell happened here? I think there was a mix-up in VS Code or something. Family. Sometimes I feel like I build apps that are always inherently more complex than a lot of apps that are getting built by people who are either just building internal apps or apps that have no security hierarchy and nestedness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think you're true because when talking to people, like with my own experiences, they can't relate like to the kinds of apps I've been building. But we've built very similar apps. Like I had the exact same experience. Like there's so much complexity in the state management, and it's like it has hierarchy, and just seeing how like, and I guess, yeah, it's just been the code editors and they are complex, and then just having that experience with Code Sandbox where it started even with Redux and how impossible it was to scale that, and then like bringing in Cerebral and just having success with it, like it made things so much more manageable and scalable. Like to devs who only use an ORM for their SQL management, but for me my apps tend to grow out of an ORM in a week. Yeah. Maybe that's the same with hooks and use there. Yeah, exactly. There's something about, yeah, it's kind of like frameworks in general, right? Frameworks have a shit ton of opinions, and they're based on like it's, how should I put it? You know, it's like a screwdriver, right? A screwdriver is a great tool. But then there are these screwdrivers that can actually bend, right? To actually like unscrew screws that you can't get to unless you can actually bend the freaking screwdriver. And those are the kinds of tools we need. Tools that bend. But most people, they unscrew normal screws, right? But I think you're right. Like there's a reason why like you get very far with React itself. And then and something happens, which is very hard to explain. But it's definitely real. Like I have emotional scars. That's how real it is. Let's see. So where do I have Bonsify now? I don't. So I don't have Bonsify in my... Wait, did it actually run the... Yeah, 5173. Where am I using Bonsify now? Maybe I need to delete. There we go. Hey, look at that. It even showed the go shopping. I want... what do we need? Something we actually need. I don't know. Just write milk. I added milk and I can remove it. So it's actually working. That's pretty cool. Now the thing is I can't really test this because we haven't been committing to doing anything for like, I don't know. Well, our youngest is 4, so I guess 4 years ago. But yeah, let's just get through this this refactor because we're kind of done with the refactor. And then it would be fun to do a stream where we kind of look at these 2 implementations and just talk about, because they're because often the conversation between becomes like, why go global? It's because React is too slow. But what if React wasn't too slow? Like it actually had these hooks that we're presenting here that makes it performant enough, or it has the same performance characteristics as global state management, reactive global state management. And then the conversation becomes more like, are components and hooks good abstractions for managing state and context? Are those concepts good for managing state, or should you still go global, right? Will that work better for you? Because if I just see this path of, okay, if you can make state management hooks of React performant enough, it's kind of like Vue, right? You don't need, well, it's interesting. Like in Vue, why do they have Vuex? Why? They don't have it for performance. That's for sure. I think they have it because of the structure. Like they don't have any strong state management patterns in Vue. It's very much like local component state, and they have inject instead of context. So, but it's in again, like that is very like, it's just a mechanism. It's not like structure. So I guess that's also a thing. It's like, and even MobX, right? MobX, even though not explicitly doing so, the class gives you the structure, right? It just becomes intuitive. Well, when you're just using functions and objects, it's not as clear how you create structure. And I don't think a lot of developers realize that the function scope of a component is the same structure you need for state management. Like hooks kind of introduce that, I guess. And then if you want to share something, well, you can just pass it down to components, or if it needs to reach a lot of nested things. Yeah, so like even here, I didn't have to use family scrum provider. I could still just use family scrum, right? And then pass family scrum down, just like I did before. To have that like strong contract between. But in this app, it's fine. But it's like, yeah. But it's the same for global, right? Do you expose it on a context globally, or what do you do? Yeah, whatever. Where were we? Checklists. Checklists. So we don't need this. We don't need props currently. Yeah, it's very interesting, like deciding between a context and props passing. But I think like props passing is mostly important when you can't guarantee the context is available. Right? If you can't guarantee that, then you should rather pass a prop. So in this case, when you have authenticated, we're exposing the whole family scrum to all components, and all of them actually has access. So there's no risk of like not being able to use that context. But maybe certain state was only available, I don't know, in some other situation. And then I wouldn't use a context. Then I would just use a hook and then pass it explicitly down, I guess. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. Family. Oh, look at this. We have something called to-dos with checklist. Yeah, so maybe we can introduce. So here, for example, I think it makes a lot of sense to have like a memo of. Well, it's interesting. Like using a local memo, that memo is discarded of when the component unmounts, right? While if we put it in the context, it's not. So we can use to-dos. We can create. Oh, we do have to-dos with checklist. Oh, interesting. Oh, sorry. I was just using the wrong reference. My bad. Yeah, so that's introduced as like just a getter. That could, of course, be its own. It could be a memo thing. But that's interesting, right? If I was going to do, so we have use to-dos here, which is composed into use family scrum, and that is to-dos with checklists. And I could make that a computed, but I wouldn't put it here on the to-dos. I would rather. You're there? Nice. 2 seconds. kult da. Vet du hva du kan gjøre nå? Men jeg skal vise deg kult først. Det var når du, sorry. Når du sånn, så kan du gjøre det rød, så får du spare i denne bilen. Det er kult da. Ja. Ja, nå har du en bak. Håper du kom på det. Hæ? Rundt? Rundt, Janne. Den der. Sånn. Sånn. Ja, da får du bytte bil, og så kommer du deg inn selv, ok? Ja, og kult. Oh my god. Yeah, so if I wanted to make this like a memo thing, yeah, I guess I could still, yeah, what could I still do? Uh-huh. Nei, du fikk ikke noe. Den bare viser at du får det. Ooh, yeah, so, but it's interesting, right? How you do memoization. You typically want to keep it memoed, right? Even though you don't have the component mounted. But in this paradigm, it's weird, even though you can do it, it is a bit weird to do like, so we can try it here. So we have, what do we call it? Check to-dos with checklist. Memo. Use reactive memo. Oh. Oops. So we have that, but then we would have to return to-dos with checklist memo current. Do I really need to have this now? Yeah. So we could do something like that. Yeah, which is perfectly fair, but it's exotic, right? It's not intuitive to do that. It's definitely more intuitive in, for example, MobX, where a getter just internally does. Oh, that's interesting. We could actually do that now. We could make getters use reactive memo. Du må klare det selv, Oskar. Veldig kult. Gå på toppen. Bra. Lykke til. Yeah, but Yeah, or like I could also return it, right? I could return that memo, but it's not like integrated into this reactive to-dos, which you know what? Which is very interesting. Like if we look at the README of this one, we're stating that like we could actually remove memo as well. So what if we said you just do this, right? Because memo would just be getters. But the problem is, yeah, no, you could do that. Like internally, you would set up an observer. Like you would basically do the observation thing inside the... Well, yeah, what you would do internally is that when it finds a getter, it replaces that getter with... Yeah, or how would it actually do that? Because... Yeah, what would it do with nested things? Yeah, no, I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it. Or it could be fine. Like, how would it work? So the proxy just has a getter, right? And then you can... Yeah, so on access, but you don't know if it's a getter on proxy access. You would have to look at the object, like the property descriptor. Well, you can do that, but then you have to do it every time on a getter. You look at the property descriptor, and then if it's a getter, you will kind of inside the proxy, you would kind of handle the derived stuff. How would that work? Yeah, because you could keep a weak map of the target. So you could create like a derived entity, like inside Bonsify, for example. Even in Bonsify, maybe that would be a good way to do it. So in Bonsify, it looks at the property descriptor on the property in the get trap of the proxy, and then if that property descriptor sets it's a getter, there can be a weak map in the proxy itself that just holds references to derived to like getters, which has like some entity that is like the function, and then it has the cache and everything and does the observation, and then it flags itself as dirty. That would be very interesting, because then what happens is like even the where were we? Like I'm thinking it simplifies even more. Where is it? Use family scrum. Yes, we had week dinners memo. Yeah, but I'm not sure. like Bonsify doesn't have a concept of derived currently. But even here, it will be kind of weird, like week dinners. Well, I guess you wouldn't put it here, right? You would put it inside weeks. So to create weeks, you would have to pass dinners and to-dos, right? And then on here, you would have dinners and to-dos. And when building up this reactive thing, each week, yeah, it is an interesting thing. Because you're basically saying you don't need use state, you don't need use reducer, you don't need use callback, you don't need use memo. I would also argue you don't need use effect or use layout effect. Well, use layout effect is different because use layout effect is about timing of applying DOM operations directly. But use effect is more like initialize this stuff when you mount. It's more about mounting and unmounting, right? And you shouldn't have effects in state management. You just shouldn't because of the indirection it creates. But you know what? I think we should implement in Bonsify the getter thing. That getters becomes and what we can also handle there is, I guess we can do the same trick as we did with memo. Like we make it like an object of current, a reactive object with a current property, and that's where we compute the value. Yeah. So you don't inherit all the dependencies of the. So when a getter uses a getter. But the thing about like having an explicit use memo is that that's something that people are. No, Bonsify doesn't use getters as computeds. It doesn't have a concept of computeds. Because like the argument there is like, it was, first of all, it was to make it as simple as possible. But there's also a strong argument that most derived state doesn't need to be computed. Like there's very specific scenarios where deriving something becomes like, just imagine UI, right? UI is deriving. You don't compute UI in the well, no, that's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. You do compute UI. They're just a bunch of computeds, really, components in a reactive paradigm. But yeah, the point was like, if you really need to cache something, like most of the derived state, it's so fast to evaluate that whenever you access it, just treat it as accessing multiple things. Like there's nothing special. It's like a proxy in and of itself. It's like it's a proxy to pointing to multiple things. So a component wouldn't like track the computed. It would track whatever whatever you access inside the getter. And then if you really needed to do something for performance reasons, you wouldn't use a getter. You would manually update a value. Yeah, exactly. And as I just said, right, if you do have like, maybe you have a table of shit ton of things, and and you derive and you want to compute that because you think it's going to be more performant. But the point is that the only time that computed caches something is when you move, like in the UI, you would hide the table, it would show the table, it would hide the table, it would show the table. But if you actually interact with the table, like you're adding something to it or whatever, the computer needs to run again. So when you interact with the data of that computed value, it doesn't matter because every time you interact, it has to recompute anyways. So it's more like computed is more for like initial rendering, especially in a reactive world, than anything. But if that's an actual problem, like just create a table state where you manually like just update that table whenever something changes. Like there's a risk to that, like deriving is safer. It has a guarantee that it's always correct. While if you manually update a state, you have to like make sure that you do that in any scenario. But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, so what I'm thinking about now is like you could argue you just need use reactive and then getters becomes use memo, or it has the same behavior as use memo. But you still have use effect and use layout effect. Yeah, because the thing that makes me, but I don't know, maybe it should just be, yeah, I think it's a composition question, I guess. Like where does memo belong? Do you compose it with your state, or is it like a different layer? Is it like something you, so you have your core state, then you have your computed state, and then you have your components kind of thing? Yeah. But anyways, I think this is fine for now. It's definitely fine for now. What the hell were we doing? We had checklists. Plan next week. Ugh. This is a rough one. Yeah, this is just navigation. And then I guess here we're just gonna do exactly the same thing. But yeah, I think we're gonna do what we're doing here now, and then comes family scrum. And then we're gonna have use family scrum active dinner. Oh. And this dinner is wait a minute, week dinners. What am I trying to do here? I'm seeing if this, I'm going through the weekdays and then active dinner. Am I going through the dinners here? No, I'm going through the weekdays. Week dinners. How the hell does this look like? Okay, active dinner. Oh, it's just a string, right? yeah, so I think this is just weekdays. It's just index, right? Yeah. Dinner assignment. Where the hell is that coming from? And this will be dinner DTO. Yeah, this will be dinner DTO. Yeah, this one's fine. And then we have plan next week to-dos. I'm scared of this one as well. Yeah, and look here, we have compute categorized to-dos. Let's first bring in family scrum. And this will be to-do DTO. I'm not sure if I'm in the mood for this. Yeah, but anyways, here we can actually do like categorize to-dos memo is use reactive memo, because this one's interesting. Like the stuff we memoed for dinners and weeks of the current current week. Yeah, I guess it's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure like where it should be. Like the benefit of having it in family scrum is that it never drops the memo. It just stays there. Well, I think another problem with the memo now is that it actually recomputes every time something changes, which it shouldn't do. It should only recompute. It should flag itself as dirty, and then whenever like current is accessed again, it should recompute if it's dirty. So that's something I need to change. Let's see, compute can. Didn't I call it derive last time? Derive. But yeah, where to put the memo is all about like how often you access it, really. So this will be family scrum.weeks. Look at us. To do DTO. To do assignment. Yeah, and again here, I could like, I think this is the thing that kind of creates a little bit of friction. It's easier when you have that strong state contract of like passing state down as props. You always rely on props for that, and it's like super optimal and all of that. But now I can choose like I do need to pass the to-do, but I don't need to pass week, previous week, and to-dos. I can just use the family scrum hook for that, and maybe that's fine. Maybe that's okay. Family scrum equals use family scrum. So this would be weeks.current, I guess. Oh no, we have the, oh. Wait, did I have week to-dos? Oh no. I don't have assignments there now. Ah. This is rough. Weeks. Previous. I don't have the assignments there now. I need to change this as well. Yeah, I don't have the members thing. I'm not in the mood to refactor this now. Can do that later. I need some food anyways. And yeah, we have to get going because we need to throw away some stuff. Cool. But yeah, this was nice. A lot of nice reflections. And then yeah, we just have to get through this refactor and then we can actually compare the two. Yeah, cool. Have a great rest of your Sunday and then we'll speak soon.